Welcome back to the garage, and today we're going to be tinkering around and trying to make something work. So to kind of recap, in a previous video, used parts deal, it's $200 for a computer and some extra parts, offered $100 and picked everything up. That deal almost went completely sideways as well. We had a little surprise. So definitely check out those videos if you want to see the whole story. But anyways, we wound up with a Dell Inspiron. It was a 5675, I believe it was 5675, and pretty much the only thing we were able to scavenge was the memory, drive, the graphics card. We wound up with a motherboard and CPU, but the motherboard was not working. And it wouldn't surprise me as this thing was covered in roach poop. So did the right thing. This is clean, it's disinfected, so no worries. Soaked it in alcohol, cleaned it, scrubbed it. I mean, really went to town just trying to bring this thing back together. And to my surprise, it appears the motherboard was dead, but I wasn't 100% sure about this CPU. It's a Ryzen 7 1700, although older, makes good for starter PCs, a little bit of potato PCs, just depending on what you're trying to play with it. But I hate for computer parts to go waste, and I hate the fact that I just can't test it. So I just went ahead and did the right thing and bought another Dell Inspiron 5675 motherboard, and we're going to try to see if we can make it work. Is it possible to even entertain the case swapping idea with it and see if this CPU is good or is the CPU bad? Now, although we possibly ended up with a dead motherboard and maybe even the CPU or both, it still was a good deal. We were able to actually recoup and did very well on it despite the little friends and headache. So now I was looking at motherboards online because this is a Ryzen 7 1700, trying to get an older motherboard for cheap. I really didn't want to break the bank on it, and just looking on eBay and even the marketplace, I mean, the average going price was about $70 to $100. And then you got to take the chance of, do you have a motherboard that has the updated BIOS in which they no longer support this? So there's a bunch of big gambles and just factors I just didn't really want to deal with. And I'm also cheap and didn't want to spend all that money. So eBay to the rescue, and I picked this up. It's a Dell refurbished. I mean, it looks sealed in the box. It even has the rear IO plate, which, you know, that's kind of nice. If this works, we could potentially put a build together. And this was $10 to include, if you add tax and shipping, it came out to about $19. So for $19, we have a motherboard that is known to work with that CPU. The motherboard is guaranteed to work according to the seller. It's actually refurbished, so I think, I mean, looking at it, yeah, maybe this was a refurbished, new old stock. I'm not 100% sure, but they said it worked and it tested, so we'll go with that. So the first thing I need to do, primarily because I don't have any, got to stock up on them, or I just don't know where they're at. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know where they're at. I need this bracket, and this thing is like bonded. I mean, it just don't want to come out. This motherboard is trash. Roach poop is very conductive, and that's probably what happened with this. So this motherboard is for sure trash. So let's take this out. And the way that we're going to do this is just heat this up with the heat gun and loosen the glue. Now, I don't want to stick on it too much because I don't want to melt the bracket, as this heat gun will melt things in a heartbeat. If we get it warm enough, we should be able to just pry it right out. That should be more than enough. Did not like that sound, but it came out. Woo, that's hot. That's hot. That was not smart. Now that that's had some time to cool off, and yes, I know these things are cheap, you could buy them and all that stuff. I know I have some, but I recently got a new shed, and I've been moving stuff back and forth, and I have no idea where my stuff is, so we're gonna have to do some inventory stuff later on. But man, this glue is yeah, some good adhesive. I wonder why they would use such an adhesive. It's not like it's a moving part or anything, but whatever. So we are able to salvage this, and now we have our mount for our CPU cooler. And this motherboard, just trying to look underneath here, see if we see anything that was hidden that could suggest what got damaged, but it's It's hard to say. But then I also read that the Ryzen CPUs of that vintage also had an issue with dead memory channels. So this could be a complete waste. But hey, it's fun and it gives me something to do. So before we get started on that, gotta spruce up the test bench. I pop motherboards on here, graphics cards on here, constantly swapping things out. And in the previous video, pretty awesome, dude from Be Quiet saw I believe it was the Star Wars. Yeah, it was the Star Wars, the graphics card I got for $100, the Jedi Order one. And in that video, I was having some issues with this power supply, and I've been having issues with this power supply, so I was looking to get it upgraded, and they offered to send me a new power supply, which is flipping awesome, along with all this stuff. Truly blessed and appreciative to have, and definitely going to get some good use on the bench. So we got a 1500 watts, a 1200 watt, and I mean, that is just fantastic. So we're going to pop out this 1200 watt. All right, so let's get this off. So let's pop this open. Let's see what's in there. So this is the Be Quiet Pure Power 12M, 1200 watts. Seal sticker. Never seen that before. Oops, messed up the box. It's not a collector's. Instructions. Man, thick cables. This is definitely what I like to see in power supplies. Side note, if you ever get a power supply and the cable just feels like spaghetti or a noodle, don't use this cable. But then again, if the power supply is sending you a spaghetti noodle cable, you probably not want to use the power supply. So food for thought. Very nice. These are the specs, in case anybody's wondering. 80 plus gold, fully modular. And the cool thing is it has the PCIe 5.0, you know, those fire cable things, adapters. And well, now you don't have to get no adapters because this has it. And let's take a look at the cables. And yeah, right over here, those high power voltage cables, whatever. Let's just pop this in right here in the test bench. This test bench, it's a love-hate relationship, and I'm actually going to be looking to get something better because you got to move all these things around, line them up. It's more of a hassle to test motherboards. So definitely we'll be looking for one. And if you guys have any recommendations, definitely put them down below. So we're not going to use all the cables, but we're going to use the ones that we need. So 24 pin, obviously, at least one SATA. Definitely not using Molex. CPU, PCIe, and we do have extras for more CPU power for, you know, all that high power goodness. The high power cables, which I'm not going to leave it plugged into the bench because it is very rarely that I get those type of graphics cards to test. In fact, I don't think ever, because, you know, we do old stuff in the channel. And like I said, Molex. But this, zip ties and screws, absolutely. So we'll just put these away. Now, a trick that I do is I take these cables, I wrap them up just like this. And there's a reason. So I can label it. And that way later on, when these cables are just lying around somewhere, I know it goes to this power supply because I have Corsair, I have EVGA. And then that way I know this is for this power supply. You don't want to mess up power supply cables. Bad things can happen. So, good to do. All right, so let's get this motherboard out. Dell refurbished. We'll leave the I/O plate in here because, well, we're not going to build a computer in this video. This is more just for testing and proof of concept. break that seal. Very satisfying. And I didn't realize that it already has that. So what we just did earlier, burning my finger, that was a complete waste. But for entertainment, priceless. So now we're gonna pop this in, and like I said, this is where the headache comes with this test bench. Now I know I could test it on a box, but I actually plan to run this for a little bit. Tried a bunch of different graphics cards, got a couple of videos lined up, so this is going to be in here for a little bit. Now we can tighten everything down. If you tighten everything down all at first, like I said, these things move around, it won't line up. And I'm probably being presumptuous doing this because don't know if the CPU works. Don't even know if the motherboard works. Says it does. But it's fine. So let's pop in the CPU. I've checked the pins. I've cleaned this off. And everything looks to be okay. So now let's line up our Legend of Zelda triangles, just like so. Fits nice and smooth. So before we pop in the CPU cooler, the first thing we want to do is we got to figure out how to power this thing on. So taking a look at it, as you can see, there's the power switch over here. It's 2, 4, 5, and then one blank one. They sell these adapters. I picked this up on eBay from Harbin Repair. I think it's Harbin Repair, not Harbor Freight. And it kind of has the pin out, as you can see. Don't mind my thumb, I smashed it working on the car. So as you can see, the top left is blank. We're going to match that up and pop it in just like so. It's the same pin out connector, just like the OptiPlexes in it and everything else. So I don't see why this shouldn't work. In the previous video, the motherboard did fire up doing this, so we're going to assume it works. We got power switch, so let's plug that right up here. Now this is just an adapter I had lying around from a bunch of OptiPlex flips I was doing a couple of years ago. I was just keeping these things in stock, and well, it just so happened to still have a couple extras. Now let's pop in the CPU cooler, and if you saw the other video, this is not the Roach one where the little guy was hiding in there. This is from a system I built, and well, I keep these coolers for moments like this. This cooler was never used, so it has factory thermal paste. All right, nice and tight. And people go crazy if you don't put thermal paste, even if you're just testing it for like a few seconds. The only reason why I'm putting thermal paste or keeping the thermal paste on it, so number one, it don't go to waste, and number two, because well, it's on there. But if I'm just doing a quick test just to make sure I got a post and stuff, I don't use thermal paste. So now 24 pin. So one thing about brand new power supplies, the cables are tight. Come on, little fella. Just need you to, there you go. Come on, there we go. Now this motherboard uses a standard 24 pin and a regular 4-pin CPU power. I was looking at the PCIe cable. So let's make sure we got the right one in. Yep, just like that. Now, I don't know if this is gonna work or the type of errors. I'm being honest with you. I haven't done research on this. I'm just trying this on a whim, just using what little knowledge I can obviously see. So we'll find out together. Now for our memory, we're just going to use a single stick of this Corsair Vengeance. 3000 megahertz should be enough speed for this Ryzen CPU. And the one reason why I use RGB memory is, well, the RGB light doesn't turn on. I found typically that means that the memory channel is dead, which could be related to the CPU or the slot. So yeah, we're just gonna run one stick, 8 gigs. I do have another one, but we're not going to game right now. And for our graphics card, which also came in this awesome deal that I got, it's a GT 730. It does not require supplemental power, and I know it works. So 1030 for the win. So with all that being said, we have everything that we need to get this started. So let's plug it up and see what happens. All right, here comes the power. Fan is spinning. I don't see RGB on the memory. Come on, give me something. Well, that's not good. So let's do some troubleshooting, change a couple parts out, and I'll report back. All right, it's a bust. So it's pretty much doing the same thing as it was doing before, and I swapped out the graphics card. This is the actual RX 580 that would have came with this system, not with this motherboard, but the one that I got. I know this works. Changed memory to 3 different memory types, still doing the same thing, and the RGB light's not coming on. So that tells me this was a dead CPU, and more than likely this motherboard was still good. The chances of 2 motherboards doing the same thing and the only common denominator is the CPU, yeah, my money's on the dead CPU. And I should have known better, because I've had Ryzen that first gen, the 1700s. I've had them come back in the garage when I was building them years ago, and I would run into that issue, and I just didn't really think about it. So yeah, I'm gonna call this a dead CPU. Unfortunate. A dead CPU. Bummer. But on the plus side, I have 2 motherboards that I don't know what to do with, but it's all right. I'm gonna look and see if I could buy a Ryzen 7 1700. I'm sure I could find one dirt cheap somewhere. Looking on the Facebook Marketplace, I think the last one I saw was like $20. So I might buy it, even if I'm into the motherboard, $20, and then $20 for the CPU. If it works, I could get a up and running CPU. This graphics card was pretty much free in that parts deal, and along with the memory and stuff. So I still can get a system going together. I'm more curious to see if we could get this motherboard going outside the Dell environment and make it function normal, just like any other motherboard. So stay tuned. So for now, I got to take all this apart, well, just the motherboard and graphics card, bag everything up, set up the bench with what I'm going to go with. I'm not sure where I'm going with my bench, if I'm being honest. I do have Intel 10th gen, so that might be my next step. I've been previously running an i7 8700, so I think a 10700 would be nice, and that should be the way to go. So for now, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, concerns, criticisms. Do you think it was the motherboard? Do you think it was the CPU? Based upon your experiences and the fact that the RGB doesn't come on the memory, is that consistent, or is there something else I'm missing? If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.